Kuphi emakhaya amadolobheni aseComplex lakhona sasifikile ke thina ke nehlelo Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Silethela ke lona ubukhoma lapha kuhamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Mina ke ngiSimphiwe Ngcongwane. Bekunene buchwepheshe ke be-internet busilethela ke indlela letinengi naletilula futhi ukuthi sichumane etindzaweni letihlukahlukene. Kepha ke manje sekumele sicabangisise kabanti ngaphambi kokuthi ke sithumele tindvo kulabanye abantu lesichumana nabo njengoba ke sekunemthetho lomusha i-Cybercrimes Act. Lo ngakufaka ke enkingeni ngetindvo letingakalungi lutithumela ke kulabanye abantu kubo social media and anywhere else. Asingene endzabeni yethu namhla ke kudzingisa kabanti ngalo mthetho. Online platforms, particularly social media, affords us the convenience of connecting with people across the globe. But incidents of abuse, crime, and inciting violence or racism have led to the tightening of laws around what you post online. And that is why the Cybercrimes Act was signed into law recently. So think before you share or post content. All right, and to tell us more about how the newly signed legislation affects us, let's now extend a warm welcome to Lebo Kunguluza. He is an entrepreneur and a businessman, in the internet space. Babe Lebo, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good evening. How are you doing?
We're good, sir. So good to have you on the show today. As a siqale ke sikhulume kabanti ukuthi ke i-cybercrime yini kahle kahle and what it entails.
Okay, a cybercrime is when there is an attack, a criminal attack mainly against your platform where there's a data that's been intercepted for financial gain. But when it comes to cyber crimes, there's other forms of cyber security that you need to encounter, which includes cyber attacks and cyber terrorism. So these are different ways in which you get attacked and the data is breached. So cyber crimes involves when people attack you for the personal, most times for the purposes of financial gain, while cyber attacks are more political and cyber terrorism are more targeted towards countries.
So who's normally affected by this crime, be it cyber attack or cyber crime?
So with cyber crimes, it could be companies that are attacked through a number of activities that get done to breach their data. Those include such things as ransomware, where, for example, the data has been breached and the computer has been, the network has been compromised, and as a result, that those who attacked you will want to get paid. There's also such things such as phishing, where your data is compromised, where they actually pretend to be the company that you know, and then you submit your information, and guess what happens when you submit your information because you think maybe this is FNB or Instagram or whatsoever, then you submit your information and then your information is then stolen so that they can have access to your credit cards. And then other forms are such as malware, where you find that companies or corporates are being attacked using emails, and then they attack you through those type of false emails where, again, you submit your information thinking that it's a legitimate company that's communicating with you while they're busy sourcing information out of you. So it's very important for people to be careful when they browse through the internet or when they receive emails or they get into certain networks, so that they don't end up submitting information that could compromise your information security.
So what are the objectives then of the Cybercrimes Act 19 of 2020? Does it also cover phishing and vishing, or does it cover content that people post on social media?
Yeah, those are, I think, when it comes to cyber crimes, there's also issues such as cyberbullying,
Yes.
where sometimes you post information that is illegal about someone, and then you end up being in trouble because of that. For example, people can end up circulating information that is false or circulating information that is that compromises someone else's credibility or someone else's private life. As a result, the person now can claim damages with a new law whereby they can now claim and say and show that you have posted this information about someone, and they can go to court and lay a lawsuit against you, where now you'll be charged. So in the past, what has been happening is that a lot of people on social media have been spreading false content or private content about people, and then there would be no recourse against that. Now there's now recourse on anyone who's posting social media information about you that could be damaging to your brand or your profile. As a result, you can take a recourse. Now, with new laws, also there's issues of POPI, which is the protection of personal information, that also has been recently launched. That's all to protect the privacy and integrity of people and companies, where they can now take action against the perpetrators.
So what then entails content that is deemed a cybercrime? Say, for instance, I'm posting something about a friend of mine or a relative or just about any private individual, and I post falsehoods. Those falsehoods, which may not necessarily have adverse effects on the national security. So can that be deemed a cybercrime? And if not, what constitutes a cybercrime? What type of content? What are some of the messages that I can be taken to task for because of cybercrime?
Okay, so what constitutes cybercrime is activities that could be of data breach, because what happens is that if someone, let's say, gets into the banking system, let's say, for example, where they hack the bank, okay, that constitutes cybercrime, because now those people are able to take, they're able to force the bank to take on certain types of steps in order to make money out of them. So in most cases, cybercrimes, as I said, are more directed to financial gain. For example, now a lot of people are working from home. Their data is breached because what happens is that as people work from home, they submit information that is very important online about the company. And then you find that cyber criminals are able to hack that information or gain access to passwords and all sorts of things, so that they can get data from that company, and they can use that data to commit cyber crimes. So it's very, very important that when people are receiving information from home or are receiving emails from home, they're very careful of submitting private information that belong to companies and expose that information to cyber criminals, because that's when the actual cyber criminality begins. The whole point of most cyber crimes is based on the fact that they want to access information for financial gain. Either they want to access your credit cards and steal money from you, or they want to be able to attack the company and request a ransom of some sort, so that they can no longer, they can release the information that belongs to the company if, let's say, there's a ransomware.
Okay, thank you so much for painting a picture for us on what cybercrime is and what the Cybercrime Act entails. Please stay on the line, Mr. Gonguluza. We'll certainly touch base with you and continue with this conversation. But now let's welcome Advocate Zanyiwe Ntatisa Asare, the Director and Digital Lawyer from Digital Legal. A very good afternoon to you, Advocate. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Yilungelo, Lakho.
Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed, let's get your perspective, Advocate, on what cybercrime is and what the Cybercrimes Act entails.
So I think before we talk about what cybercrime is, we need to just paint another picture. I think Lebu just painted a really good one. But when it comes to cybercrimes, it's really, or the Cybercrimes Act, we're talking about rules and regulations that govern the cyberspace. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when you think about anything that you do in the physical world, there's the cyber equivalent. So, for instance, when you talk face-to-face with somebody, you've got the virtual equivalent or the cyber equivalent. When you, interact with people or interact rather with your bank, people aren't doing it physically anymore. We're doing it online. So, really, the Cybercrimes Act is South African government's response to needing laws and regulations that regulate the online space.
So is it likely to deter cyber criminals, this particular act? Because I know that so many cyber criminals, they hide behind fake accounts, or in some instances they're called ghost accounts.
So I think that's a really spot-on question. Will it deter cyber criminals? So we know cyber criminals are probably the most creative individuals that this world has ever come across. And I think just to bring it back to the definition of what a cybercrime is, so it's the unlawful and intentional access of a computer system or computer data storage or medium, which is also considered an offense along the unlawful interception or interference of data. So this is effectively what cyber criminals do. They find out different ways, as technology develops, to develop their own methods of hacking people, getting their data, getting their information. And I think it's important when we talk about the Cybercrimes Act to also talk about the Protection of Personal Information Act, which I think Lebu did touch on. So effectively, when we work online, we're speaking about data. And I'm going to use this sort of, so hoya online, honestly, the thing that we're bonang or libito la hao, fana ya hao, all the details that belong to you. So effectively, that's what people use. It's like what you said, being anonymous online. This means that being online has the capacity of someone stealing your information and creating a fake account. And how do we verify this? So effectively, the Cybercrimes Act is putting in methods and procedures for us to be able to say, okay, if you say this is who you are, we can put down forensics. So if someone says that the particular account that you're using is fake, then we would go to our point of, or the custodian of the Cybercrimes Act, the South African Police Service, to then go and investigate and find out whether indeed this is who you say you are, if they say that that particular account has been embroiled in a crime.
Okay, Advocate, please hold your thoughts. We'll continue this conversation after the break. Welcome back. Our lines are now open for you to take part. 0117146918, 0117146919. You can also email your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za. Nomage usithumele umlayito ku Facebook. Namhla ke bekunene sikhuluma ke nge-cybercrime kanye ke ne-Cybercrimes Act. Lokusho ngumthetho loswakhishiwe kuze kuthi ke bantu bayekele lokuthumela imilayito ke lengakalungi on social media. Letinge gebengu ke dati hacke accounts ebantu kuze ukuthi batfoleke imali kubo. So namhla ke sikhuluma nge-Cybercrimes Act ukuthi what does it entail? Uyilo umthetho lo nekuthi ke bantu batawujeziseka kanjani ke ngale cybercrime. Namhla ke sinale Gunguluza, he is a businessman in the tech sector. Siphinde sinaba Advocate Zanyiwe, she's a digital lawyer usebenza kakhulu ngendaba letitsinzana ne-cybercrimes. Now Lebo, let me also welcome you onto this conversation. In terms of the punitive measures, what are some of these punitive measures? What is it a fine? Is it a prison sentence?
Well, now government is imposing a fine. It's not steep enough, but they're imposing a fine on anyone that's been found criminally liable. I'm not sure whether it's 80 or 150,000, but I know that there's definitely a fine against anyone who's been found guilty, either for criminal offenses, cyber criminal offenses. In the US, it's a lot more steep. People can sue you for millions in the US for criminal offenses. But in South Africa, there's still a lot more to be done. But there's also, you can also go to prison. So there's now a criminal, you can get jail time when you're found for criminal offenses, cyber criminal offenses. So yes, there is punitive action.
Okay, and earlier on I asked Advocate Zanyiwe about how the authorities could navigate around the issue of people starting up, what they call fake accounts or ghost accounts to solicit money or information or incite violence on social media. But it's very, very difficult, I know, it's a very difficult terrain for authorities to traverse when it comes to fake accounts. So how do you suggest or how do you propose that they deal with it?
You know, it's probably the most difficult thing to do because in the past, also I've had my own personal experience where, you are trying to identify whoever has done something against you. It is easy when it's visible to take action. But the challenge with cyber crimes is that you don't really know who's doing this. So the most difficult thing is firstly finding the person who is actually the perpetrator. So a lot of people hide behind their names and the pseudonyms. There's catfishing. People use different fake accounts, all sorts of things. As a result, to trace the people who have done the harm against you is extremely difficult. So as a result, you have to find experts who can actually hack and find those perpetrators. But when it's easy to identify, let's say someone had the information on their phone, and you know that that's the only person that had that content or that had that access to your data, and they're the ones who did the work, and you can prove that, then it becomes easy to lay a charge against that person. So that's usually the challenge when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber crimes. And the other thing that becomes difficult is the law in South Africa. There's not enough technology to actually become proof that such person has done the perpetrating. So South Africa is still a bit behind when it comes to finding the perpetrators. But the issue of catfishing, there's a lot that needs to be discussed around social media specifically and catfishing and all sorts of other social media crimes. Because in South Africa, it's still a debate that needs to be engaged on between government, civil society, and the digital players in South Africa. That's why we are hosting an event on the 8th of September called Social Media Week. And cybersecurity is become a big topic because a lot of companies are suffering with these cyber crimes. There's about 577 cyber crimes, malware that happens every hour in South Africa. And to trace that and chase after that, it requires a lot of effort in terms of activities and companies that are in the space that are in cybersecurity. So it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's a lot of work that needs to go into this.
Indeed. And it's a very, very long way to go until we achieve what we need to achieve, as a result of the Cyber Crimes Act. So let's now talk in greater detail about civil society behavior on social media, how we should behave. What is it that, we should stay away from when it comes to posting content on social media?
Okay, this is one thing that's extremely important when it comes to cyber crimes. They say prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
Sometimes it's very expensive to try to fix the problem. is very, very costly. So it's very, very important that we have preventative measures. That is why it's better to be considerate of what you're going to post before you regret it. That's why a lot of companies always put security systems and softwares that are important to prevent, because once the damage is done, to bring things back, it's extremely expensive. And then the second thing is that once the damage is done, you have to now detect the damage that is done. That on its own is an expensive exercise, because now there's a lot of professionals that are very specialized who have to now detect the damage. That's why organizations such as Liberty, when they were attacked, they spent billions and billions to try and solve the problem before they can even pay the perpetrators who were doing ransomware. So it's extremely important. And then after that, there's what you call responding. So when you respond, it means now you have to fix the problem. Not only have you detected the problem, you have to now fix it. It's also expensive. So, and then you have to report on what has happened to the directors or whoever else is a stakeholder. Okay. So when you report, it's another expensive exercise. So there's a lot of things involved when the damage is done. So people must always either prevent, they must just not take pictures. If you are feeling that you're in love and you want to take private pictures, them sitting on your phone alone is a danger. Transferring it to someone else is also a danger. That information can be intercepted. There could be a serious data breach. That's why I say people who are at home, they must make sure that there's enough security, there's enough firewalls, there's enough. Companies must put a lot of security between their employees, because they are mobile now. In the past, you could work in the office and have your information safe because the security. Now, a lot of people are working from home. That means it's easy for data breaches to happen between that place and that place. You find that the person at home does not have enough security in their home in terms of software security. As a result, it's easy for breaches to happen. So what I'm advising is that prevention is much better than cure. So it's
you're quite right there when you say there's still a whole lot of work to be done, including raising awareness about what cybercrime is and how people can protect themselves from cyber criminals. Let's leave it there for now. We'll continue our discussion after the break. Please don't go away, and we'll be back right after this. Sanamukela futhi bekunene, khumbula ukuthi tincingo tetfu-ke solo tivuliwe ukuthi nawe-ke ungavakalisa umbono wakho. You can call us on the numbers on your screens right now, 011-714-6918 noma-ke 011-714-6919. Our email is consumer@sabc.co.za. Alternative, you can interact with us on our social media platforms, in particular Facebook. Yilungelo Lakho is where you can get us on Facebook. Namhla-ke sikhuluma-ke nge-cybercrime kanye-ke ne-Cybercrime Act. Lokusho ukuthi kuwumthetho-ke loshicelelwe kuze kuthi ugweme bantu ukuthi baposte tinvo letingakalungi ku social media. Labanye ke labathi gebengu bangena kuma accounts ebantu and solicit timali ke nayo yonke ke information. So sitawubuka ke namhla bekunene ukuthi lo mthetho lo utawucinzetela intigeleke netigebengu kuze ukuthi bagweme kuyenda lento lebayendako. Namhla ke sina Lebo Gunguluza is an entrepreneur in the tech space and he's also the chairperson of the upcoming social media week. Sitawukhuluma naye kabanti ke ngayo le ndzaba social media. Digital lawyer advocate Zanyiwe. And advocate, just before we went to that ad break, Lebo and I were discussing in greater detail how social media users or just civil society in general should behave on social media. And I suppose behavior on social media would warrant us to know what is it that we should be posting and what we shouldn't be posting. So what is it that we should stay away from in terms of protecting ourselves from cyber criminals?
So, as a female, one of the things that I'd like to push forward is revenge porn or, pictures of an intimate nature that gets sent out by partners. And I think a lot of the times people want to cordon it off to, just relationships. So if you have a picture sent to you by a friend of his girlfriend or lover, and you decide to post it as well, send it through even via WhatsApp, and this particular person finds out or someone gets wind of it, you could get in trouble as well, as if you were the person who took that picture or sent it as the originator themselves. So I think those are some of the things that we really need to look into. We've really assimilated into this culture of sending people's things. Someone sends you something on WhatsApp, you send it to somebody else, and it's this massive chain that happens. And it might not be out of a bad place. We're just sending it to laugh, or we're sending it for whatever reason. But that in itself is dissemination or processing of information, and you should not be doing that.
Yeah, you raise a very, very important point, because I've heard some arguments to that effect, that what if I share content that is not mine, that I did not author this particular content, but I was just sharing it from someone, I got it from someone else, and then I just passed on the information. So does it mean that being a conduit of harmful information land me in trouble?
So, like I said in the beginning, there's a massive overlap between the Protection of Personal Information Act and the Cybercrimes Act. So the Protection of Personal Information Act specifically says that in order for you to process data, and processing is anything, it's from collecting, storing, sending, manipulating, adding something on. That processing itself is governed by laws, so the Cybercrimes Act and the Protection of Personal Information Act. And according to both the acts, these are things that are identifiable, so you can connect it to a particular person and it belongs to somebody. And then the Cybercrimes Act takes it further and says pictures of an intimate nature being sent. So it doesn't say, oh, the person that takes the picture. Being sent is the operative term here, or being disseminated. So you yourself, being someone that has received something and sending it on, become part of the data processing value chain. So you are just as guilty as the person who initially disseminated that information.
Now, Lebo, let me also bring you in. I want us to talk about the impact of social media on cybercrime in today's digital age. I mean, in the perspective of the ability to sort of communicate anonymously on social media, makes it really, really possible for most cyber criminals to be untraceable after defrauding unsuspecting victims. Please unmute your device, Lebo. We're not able to hear you.
I've got it.
Okay.
About that.
Yes, please. Yeah, please go. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So what happens is that it makes it extremely difficult, because at this point in time, a lot of individuals, they've got fake cell phone numbers that they use to create accounts, and they make it. They use fake emails, and others that are watching you online, they actually don't even bring their identity forth, purely because they've got those damaging intentions, to be on site, to see what you're viewing online. And they can also try and distort some of the perception that people think of you by using false information about you and spread it falsely, so that they can achieve their own personal gain or whatever they wanted to do. So what happens in most cases, especially with celebrities, especially recently, is that a lot of catfishing accounts, which are fake accounts, or people who are pretending to be you, who are using your pictures. Sometimes they even have different names from your name, and yet a lot of people know that that is not you. The most difficult thing is to report, because when you report, you depend on the social media account platform to actually act quickly on that particular act of criminality. For example, in catfishing, we depend on Facebook to act quickly and remove that particular profile that is false of you. We depend on Instagram to remove it. But if those organizations that own those platforms are not quick enough to remove, the act of criminality continues perpetually. So, and the more people report those cases, the more the impact that can happen that you can prevent further damage against your brand. What happens, especially for people in Forex, they will always come to you and say, this Forex opportunity is here. And then because you think that's Lebo Gumuluza, and because it's got my picture there, it's got activities that are similar to my own profile. People then think it's my profile. And because they trust my brand, they spend money. And then when you walk in the streets in town or wherever or in social circles, someone says, Lebo, I gave you 25,000. What happened to my money? And then you don't know about the activity. You are shocked. It happens to a lot of celebrities. As a result, it puts a lot of celebrities' lives in danger, because now someone is going to want to react in the way and want to take the law to themselves because they think you've stolen their money. And in that way, it puts a lot of well-known personalities in danger. So the reaction takes time. Unfortunately, it puts a lot of people's lives in danger. So the owners of the platforms need to come to the party and find a quicker way to react against this type of catfishing, this type of falsifying people's profiles, and taking advantage of people's profiles in order to gain from their profile. Right. So it's very damaging at this point in time. And I think as South Africans, we need to be alert. When you see that something is fishy, you need to reassure and double check before you spend your money on someone that you don't know, and because you think that it's a celebrity that you know.
And you also need to be very wary about certain websites, which could be, potential breeding grounds for these cyber crimes and cyber criminals to thrive. Now, Zanyiwe, we know that the ability to sort of communicate anonymously on social media makes it possible for most cyber criminals to be untraceable after defrauding unsuspecting victims. So the big question is then, what could the potential impact be of social media on cyber crimes in today's digital age?
So social media is a massive contributor to cyber crimes. As Lebu said, people hide behind faces, they take other people's information, whether it's for their own personal use, lying about products. And I think that's where literacy and awareness really comes in. So one of my other hats is I'm the chairperson of the South African Internet Governance Forum, and we are a multi-stakeholder group put together by the Department of Telecommunications and Digital Technologies, and we report to Parliament about issues of internet governance. And one of the biggest things is exactly what you're talking about people taking identities. And I think from an awareness perspective, people don't understand how the internet works. So for instance, if you are going online, there's a DNS or an IP address that you use, and someone can actually use that to manipulate where you are, what you're doing. And then the same thing when it comes to, some of these emails that we get, and I'm going to just read it out or say it out. So good afternoon or good morning, sir or madam. You have received a letter from a relative or someone that shares a surname, the same surname as you. And if you want to get this amount of $100 million or whatever it is that they say to you, please contact me on this because we can assist you to get this money. And we live in a day and age where people are desperate. It's COVID times. People's job security is very low, and they're desperate to take a chance, take a quick buck. They say the person has the same surname as you, let me go and do it. So sometimes these things, people act in a manner, it's not malicious, you're trying your luck. But the moment you open yourself up to that Pandora's box, you get yourself into so much trouble. You give them your name, your surname, your ID number. So sometimes it's not always, you acting in a manner that is wise online. But this comes from a space of not being educated. When I think about the internet, I think about a car. Giving someone a cell phone, a laptop, anything that's connected to the internet is quite similar to giving someone a car. Before you get into a car, you have to learn the rules of the road. Before you touch anything, you need to write a test. Once you get that test, that's when you get into a car with a supervisor. And I don't think enough has been done, not just in South Africa, globally. We remember the internet came across us so quickly, so vast, with so many options, and no one had the time to sit you down. Can you imagine how many, not just children, but adults themselves find themselves in these kind of traps? It's purely an awareness issue. And I think if some of the people that get themselves involved in these kind of things also understand the punitive measures. So, for instance, Lebu said that there's not enough being done in South Africa from a cybercrimes perspective. Recently, the Protection of Personal Information Act came on, and if you are found wanting, or if you're found guilty of an offense of disseminating someone's data, you could get a fine of up to 10 million rand. So it really is by case scenario. You need to look into it. It is quite a technical field when it comes to how you assess the damages, or how you assess who gets in jail for how long, because it can be up to 10 years if you interface with personal information or personal data. And I think when it comes to the crimes of nowadays or common days, we need to educate ourselves in cyber crimes.
Okay, Zanyiwe, I want us to talk a bit more about some of the red flags to look out for purposes of protecting ourselves from potential cyber crimes and cyber criminals after the break. So please hold your thought. We'll certainly touch base with you in a moment. Let's now take another break. Hlela nasi kungasanyakati mbukeli. Sisasake shwi ngasethi makethe. Sanimukela ke bantu abakithi namhla-ke sikhuluma-ke nge-cybercrime kanye-ke ne-cybercrime act ukuthi-ke silwane sini-ke le-cybercrime act nekuthi-ke itababulala noma-ke itabatfola kanjani-ke labo-ke lababonakale ukuthi vele batigelekeche batshontsha netimali tebantu ku-internet nasekuma-bank accounts abo. Namhla-ke sina lebukunguluza kanye na-advocate Zanyiwe. Now, advocate, just before that, we went to the ad break. You made a very, very valid point, and I want us to touch a bit more about the act of receiving some unsolicited information or emails. And I'm sure at some point you've received an email or a message on your cell phone that says, congratulations, you've won $50,000. All we need from you is to send us your bank details. So what are some of the red flags that we should be on the lookout for?
So I know that makes people feel so lucky and happy sometimes, but the truth is, did you enter a competition?
Right, big question.
If you've never entered a competition of that nature, how do you get a message telling you that you won something? So already there, you need to think about that. Sometimes there are people who mimic, it might not be an SMS, maybe it will be an email. So they'll mimic, or even an SMS actually, they'll mimic, they'll say it's Vodacom, and they'll see that you're maybe on a Vodacom number or an MTN number. Hi, this is MTN and you won XYZ. So we know what the MTN and the Vodacom numbers look like, right? It's a very long number, and sometimes it will actually have like a predetermined sort of name or label on your phone. So if you see something is weird there, don't. And a lot of the times people want to call back. And there's this other thing that people do with the trunk calling, where they'll call your number and you call back and then all your airtime disappears. And I think it's really about that. Don't be afraid to Google. If you've got a number and you see it's come on, put it on your Google, check if that number pops up. A lot of the times on the online community groups, people will say, hey, be aware of this number, or someone will ask a question, do you know who this number is already? Then you'll know there's something dodgy. So those are one of the things that I would say. And I think just to speak about what Lebu had said about online activities, let's say you're a Forex trader, or you do something with a product, and then someone says to you, you know what, I want to do business with you. Give me 20,000 Rand and we'll start something. First of all, do not part with your money, guys. It's tough times. It's COVID. We do not give money away easily. That's not what we're doing here. Yeah. So if someone does want to do something like that, the police station is a very big help in a situation. So in a normal contract, when someone does anything with you, you are allowed to ask for an ID, and you are allowed to ask for a certified ID. And the reason why I say this is because sometimes we find ourselves in situations where somebody's in Cape Town and you find yourself in Bloemfontein, but you want to do business if you've been talking online. Tell the person to go to the police station. Tell them to get a certified affidavit. And after you get that certified affidavit, call the police station and say, look, on XYZ date, this time, I got somebody that a certified copy from your side. Is this, can I verify that? If they say no or yes, then you work with that. So ensure that you always protect your money, protect yourself. Don't give off information that is unnecessary. And then secondly, when it comes to websites and buying things online, I know South Africa is we're lagging behind with online purchasing, but we do have people that also do participate on online purchasing, ensure that your website is secure. So this is the training and awareness that we talk about when we say that you need to be cyber safe and cyber secure. So when you go online, you will see there's almost like a lock on the left-hand side of the websites or the HTTP that you use. So if there's a lock, then you know it's a secure site. And sometimes, let's say with online banking, you go to www.bank.co.za, and then you see that someone has actually got www.banka.co.za. It looks very similar, but you need to ensure that you're reading every single letter on that website address.
Yeah.
Because you can find yourself doing something where you're giving your information away.
Okay, and we know that cybercrime is performed virtually or remotely, in often cases, Zanyiwe, most of these cyber criminals are part of an international syndicate of criminals, and most of these criminals, they are overseas and they can perpetrate or they can do a crime for victims who are of foreign origin. So in terms of the scope of investigation by the investigators under the Cybercrime Act, how far does it extend? Does it extend beyond the borders? In short, is the Cybercrime Act in concert, or will it be implemented in concert with other international treaties?
So I think that's an excellent question, and I'm going to say this. So last week we had a meeting with one of the seniors in the National Prosecuting Authority, and we were discussing the practicalities of implementing extraterritorial or crimes outside of our jurisdiction as South Africa. So what the Cyber Crimes Act does, which is really a phenomenal part of this act, is it works together with Interpol and other countries or other jurisdictions, police officers and officers of the law. So effectively, if something does happen, one, like Lebu said, you need to have a very thorough investigation. So we do have forensic investigators in our country who are quite, good at and skilled at what they do. But I think they are underutilized because people don't understand what they need to be used for. And what the South African Police Service is also doing is they're investing quite a bit in training people on digital forensics so that they can understand exactly where these hackers are, understand where the IP address takes them to, understand how to unmask certain things, and also understand domain name systems and understanding how websites and the internet itself works. I think one of the things that is beautiful about the Cyber Crimes Act is it does think and does talk about extraterritorial territories, pardon me, and jurisdictions outside South Africa.
All right, Zanyiwe, let's leave it there. And after the break, we'll be talking about the upcoming Social Media Week. And Lebo Kunguluza, please stay on the line. We'll definitely be touching base with you with regards to that. As I start, welcome to our final segment. Cybercrime, Cybercrime Act. Now, Lebo, earlier on you had mentioned the upcoming Social Media Week. Just take us through the Social Media Week and what it seeks to achieve.
Yes, I think Social Media Week, the idea behind Social Media Week is exactly to create awareness, firstly, of the opportunities in Social Media Week, so in social media, the dark side of social media, and the opportunities to work with various stakeholders and global stakeholders in social media. So Social Media Week is a global event that is hosted all over the world. It originates from New York. So it's the biggest social media conference in the world. And it's now coming to Durban on the 8th to the 12th of September at Southern Sun Elangeni. It is in partnership with the KwaZulu-Natal government, with Vodacom, and other partners such as Durban Tourism and Innovate Durban. So the idea is that there's a lot of people that come from all over Africa to come to Social Media Week, but because of the pandemic, you'll find that there will be over 1,200 people who are virtual, and then there'll be a limited amount of people who are live according to regulations by government with regards to COVID. So usually it is a massive event that takes place over 5 days. But now it's going to take place from the 8th to the 12th of September in Durban. So if anyone wants to find out more about Social Media Week, they must just visit www.smwdurban.com. It's basically short for Social Media Week Durban.com. Or they can just Google Social Media Week and Durban should come through because it's a global event. It's done in 24 countries. South Africa, we have managed to secure the license to host it in Durban in partnership with the KwaZulu-Natal government.
Okay.
So if you can put on the screen smwdurban.com and people can get tickets there online.
Thanks for that, Lebo. Now, as a final thought, Advocate Zanyiwe, we understand that certain companies that are hacked may not, necessarily report the crime if it emerges that they actually fail to take precautions, such as, regular software updates, for instance. So how do companies protect themselves and how do individuals protect themselves?
So from a company's perspective, the technical requirements would be firewall, would be really software that makes sure that you are cyber secure, anti-malware. But then the technical side is not enough. Training and awareness. There's no way that you're going to put up all these fancy things and invest all this money without teaching people what not to do. Sometimes a cyber crime really starts from someone pressing the wrong button or pressing the wrong link or sending the wrong message. So ensuring that your staff know what's going on. And then from a individual's perspective, for instance, October is Cybersecurity Month. So in Cybersecurity Month, we teach people what to do online, who not to send messages to, basically the do's and do nots of interacting online.
Okay.
So parents need to invest in this for themselves. They need to invest in this for their children. Schools need to get involved. And I think
Zanyiwe, unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your time with us and for sharing your thoughts around this issue. That is Advocate Zanyiwe Ntati, the CEO of Digital Illegal, and as well as Lebo Gunguluza, the chairperson of a Social Media Week conference. Great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. Ake mbukeli sesifike kanjalo kumaphethelweni ehlelo lethu namhla-ke ngicabanga ngibonge ivakashi lethu ngesikhathi lebe benaso nathi ngithanda ukubuka kanye nani ngibabukele emakhaya ngekuba nathi kuze kube ngimanje. Please join us again next week Tuesday for yet another live consumer affairs discussion. From Isimphiwe Ngcongwane and the rest of the team, ngisale kahle, wishing you all the great week. Cheers.